All right, folks, we're going to get back to this breathtaking stock market Trump versus Kamala versus your mother-in-law story. We've got Kevin Hassett and Steve Forbes waiting in the wings in just a couple of moments. But first up, I want to know why no one besides Bibi Netanyahu is talking about we win, they lose, total de-Hamasification. That's the subject of the rift tonight. While thousands of useful idiots and anti-Semites were protesting, oftentimes violently, Prime Minister Netanyahu met privately with President Biden, Vice President Harris, and then former President Trump. So that's a lot of meetings. Perhaps it represents three separate governments, for all we know. But I am concerned that even after his stirring, inspiring, forceful speech before Congress, the Prime Minister seemingly has not made any real progress towards convincing the leaders of all these potential governments that they must support Israel's effort to destroy Hamas. In other words, finish the job. Take a listen to this.
For the forces of civilization to triumph, America and Israel must stand together. Because when we stand together, something very simple happens. We win, they lose.
There you go. And I think he is totally 100% right. But if you read the readouts from the three meetings, you really don't find any reference to that kind of Netanyahu rallying cry. At least Mr. Trump talked about stopping Iran, but in the past he has seemingly favored a total victory by Israel in a short period of time. Perhaps he said that privately to Netanyahu, but it was not in the readout nor the presser that followed their meeting. What he did say, referring to his successful pro-Israeli accomplishments like moving the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem and, of course, the path-breaking Abraham Accords, what he said was he couldn't understand how any Jewish people could vote Democratic. Well, perhaps so, but with San Francisco socialism running wild on the ballot, I personally don't know how anybody can vote Democratic, just as an aside. The Kamala Harris people put out a statement and seem much more concerned about Hamas and their Palestinian co-conspirators garbling some gibberish about not seeing the war in Gaza through a binary lens. What does that mean? And talking about the complexity of the situation. Sounds like she's leaning away from Israel, which is what a good San Francisco radical progressive would be expected to do. But not so long ago, there was a lot of talk about de-Hamasification, comparing it to denazification during and after the Second World War. That's the we win, they lose scenario. But I don't hear that anymore. There's a lot of talk about a ceasefire and a hostage release, but details are scarce and the whole story seems vague. Of course, Hamas still has not told anyone who and how many hostages are still alive. There are American hostages that may still be alive, but neither Biden nor Kamala ever seem to talk much about them. Biden's whole goofy floating pier plan to deliver humanitarian aid completely fell apart in a couple of weeks. But the liberal media doesn't want to talk about that anymore. And it's hard to tell whether Prime Minister Netanyahu, who is a very brave man, is nonetheless boxed in by a combination of unruly domestic Israeli politics, as well as a lack of support from the Biden-Kamala administrations. So my last thought is, when can sensible people who know the difference between good and evil get back to we win, they lose? And that's my riff.